So imagine this. You finally agree a deal on a property in London. Maybe you are buying your first flat. Maybe you are selling the family home after 20 years. The estate agent calls you and says, "Congratulations, offer accepted." And for about 5 minutes, life feels amazing. You are excited. You call your parents, you message your friends, you already start imagining your future. And then you enter the conveyancing process. And very quickly you realize this system makes absolutely no sense. I am Marco Fasanella, I'm a member of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyor, and I work in real estate as an advisor and asset manager, with over 15 years of experience across the UK and the Italian markets. I am co-founder of Habitat Investments, our development company, and Habitat Living, our operation and property management branch. On this channel, we focus on explaining how real estate works in practice, covering investment, development, and operations, always in a clear and practical way. Let's start with the buyer. Meet Alex and Sophie. Classic London story. 6 moms searching for a property. Every Saturday, property viewings. Every evening, refreshing light move like it's a social media. And eventually, they find the one. Nice kitchen, good location, close to the tube, offer accepted. Amazing. But here is the part that shocks a lot of people, especially foreigners buying in London. At this stage, literally nobody is committed. Nobody. The seller can walk away. The buyer can walk away too. Someone else can show up tomorrow with a higher offer. And somehow everybody just accepts this as normal. Which is kind of insane when you think about it. Because the moment the offer gets accepted, buyers start spending money immediately. Surveys, solicitors, mortgage fees, searches, valuations, thousands of pounds before they actually own anything. And then the waiting starts. And wow, the waiting. Because conveyancing in England somehow turns every email into a 3-week adventure. You ask a question, a week later, still silence. Then suddenly someone says, "Oh sorry, we're waiting for one document." One document, and apparently that document is being transported across the country by horseback. Meanwhile, Alex and Sophie are emotionally already living in the flat. They are talking about furniture, where the sofa goes, which room becomes the office. But legally, they own absolutely nothing, and the seller can still pull out tomorrow. Now, here is the funny thing. People think sellers have it easier. Not even close. Meet Luca and Sara. They accepted an offer on their family home. Great news! They already found the next place. The kids know they're moving schools. Boxes are everywhere. Emotionally, they already left the house weeks ago. But legally, they are completely exposed too, because the buyer can disappear at any moment. And this happens constantly. Sometimes the mortgage gets rejected. Sometimes the survey scares the buyer, we see this very often. Sometimes people panic, sometimes they just change their mind. Imagine planning your entire future around the sale, only to get a phone call saying, "Yeah, sorry, the buyer pulled out for personal reasons." 4 months gone, just like that. And then comes the other big issue of London real estate, the chain. If you have never experienced a property chain before, I genuinely envy you. Because a chain is basically one buyer depending on another seller, depending on another buyer, depending on another mortgage advisor, depending on another solicitor, depending on another managing agent, who apparently replies to emails once per season. And if one person pulls out, everything collapses. The moving dates disappear, removals get cancelled, people lose money, families are stuck. Everybody suffers together. It's almost impressive how stressful the system manages to be. And then come the mind games. Gazumping. Such a polite word for something so brutal. It basically means the seller accepts a higher offer at the last minute. So buyers spend months emotionally invested, thousands of pounds spent, and then suddenly, sorry, somebody offered more, gone. But sellers get hit too, because buyers can do the opposite, Gazundering, which sounds made up, but sadly it isn't. That's when a buyer suddenly lowers their offer right before exchange of contracts. Imagine you're ready to move. Van is booked, boxes are packed, new property is lined up, and then the buyer suddenly says, "Yeah, we would like to reduce our offer by £25,000. And this is a true story, since this has happened to us a few times in the past. And the strangest part is that none of this is inevitable. This system could actually be massively improved. For example, one obvious solution would be buyers committing financially the moment an offer is accepted, because a buyer deposit early in the process would completely change the psychology of the transaction. Suddenly, everybody would have skin in the game. Right now, a buyer can spend 3 months progressing a purchase and then simply disappear with no consequences at all. And on the other side, sellers can still accept higher offers halfway through the process because nothing is really locking the deal in place. This uncertainty is what creates so much chaos. However, imagine this instead. The offer gets accepted and both sides commit. The buyer puts down a reservation deposit. Not necessarily huge, it can even be 1% of the purchase price or an agreed amount, enough to show that I'm serious about buying this property. Now, obviously there should be some protections as well for the buyer. For example, if the survey reveals a major issue or the mortgage gets rejected, there should be absolutely ways for the buyer to recover the money. But if someone pulls out for no real reason after wasting months of everybody's time, there should probably be some consequence. Because at the moment, the system almost rewards uncertainty. People continue browsing properties after agreeing a deal. Sellers continue entertaining higher offers. Everybody stays nervous until exchange of contracts. And that uncertainty spreads through the entire chain. A financial commitment earlier in the process would create something the current system desperately lacks: confidence. Buyers would feel safer spending money on surveys and legal fees. Sellers would feel more secure planning their move. Agents could progress transactions faster instead of constantly worrying that the deal might collapse tomorrow. And maybe most importantly, people would stop treating accepted offers like maybe. Because buying property shouldn't feel so stressful. You shouldn't spend 4 months wondering whether the other side is still interested. And on the seller side, a huge amount of delays could also be avoided if sellers prepared most of the documentation before listing the property. Things like searches, management packs, leasehold information, even surveys. Imagine how much time could be saved if most of the legal information already existed before the buyer even came in. Instead, what happens now is the property gets listed first, and only after an offer is accepted does everyone start scrambling to find documents. Which feels completely backwards, especially in London where speed matters so much. At the moment, to be fair, there are discussions happening around improving the system. You hear conversation about digitalization, upfront information, reservation agreements, better commitment from both sides. And on paper, some of these ideas actually make sense. The real question is, will anything actually change? Because for years people have agreed the current system, is inefficient. Everybody complains about it. Buyers complain, sellers complain, agents complain, solicitors complain, developers complain, literally everyone. And yet somehow the process still feels like a stressful tradition that everybody continues. Because well, that's just how it works. London is one of the greatest property markets in the world, but the conveyancing process still feels completely outdated. Too much uncertainty, too much stress, too much wasted time and money. So hopefully one day the system finally catches up with modern reality. But until then, buying or selling property in London will continue to feel less like a transaction and more like an emotional endurance test. So if you're currently going through conveyancing right now, good luck. Seriously, good luck. So now, if you have experienced a horror story during a property transaction, and statistically you probably have, put it in the comments. I really would like to hear it. Well, if you enjoy straightforward, practical conversation about property, you are in the right place. This channel is all about real estate, whether it's investment, development, asset management or market updates. No hype, no shortcuts, just real talk about how property really works. Thanks for watching and I look forward to connecting with you again soon. See you in the next one. Ciao!